Welcome to this BigCommerce episode of TalkCommerce, and I have Brent Bellm here, the CEO of BigCommerce. Brent, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us your day-to-day role, and maybe one of your passions in life.
Great. So I'm CEO of BigCommerce. I took over for the founders about 7 years ago. BigCommerce is a software as a service e-commerce platform. We're basically the software that brands and retailers use to create beautiful, successful, fast-growing e-commerce stores. We serve them all around the world. We're big, of course, in North America, but also Australia, New Zealand, across EMEA, and very proudly have recently launched in Mexico with further expansion plans in South America. We power brands of all sizes, from brand new companies and startups who get going for $30 a month, all the way up to some of the world's very largest companies. For example, Procter & Gamble runs vast majority of its brands on sites all over the world on BigCommerce. S.E. Johnson, Unilever, other customers of ours, just to pick one category. We recently launched Ted Baker, leading men's apparel and lifestyle brand. And we're one of the biggest software as a service platforms in the world. We IPO'd 2 years ago and now trade as a public company on the NASDAQ.
That's great. So we're at Shop Talk today, and you had a big announcement yesterday, multi-storefront. Why don't you tell us a little bit about multi-storefront for BigCommerce and what that looks like?
Yes, multi-storefront is the biggest and most complex product release in our history, and arguably one of the most complex and biggest product releases of any e-commerce platform in history. What multi-store does is it lets any account or customer of ours launch additional stores for additional brands, additional customer segments, and or additional geographies, all from a single account. These stores can have the same or different themes and designs, catalogs, checkout experiences, integrations. The value of it, though, is it's the scalable way for companies to expand how and where they sell, leveraging all the efficiencies of a single account. What is so powerful about this is that traditionally one could only get multi-store functionality from the most expensive large enterprise platforms, Magento Enterprise, Salesforce, SAP. And what made it really complex to launch is our platform was originally designed for one account, one store. You could have multiple stores, but they each had to have their own account, their own infrastructure. You're basically duplicating all your effort. To build multi-store, every component of our platform had to become multi-store aware. Catalog had to know which store it's referencing. Checkout, which store it's referencing. Tax, every single component, themes, URLs, had to be rewritten to understand which store am I talking about, storefront, for a given owner. And that rewrite took us 3 years. We did it all while on a multi-tenant SaaS platform, meaning without disrupting the 60,000 roughly stores that are running every day. Their stores keep running, and then at the end of this path, they suddenly have the ability to add more stores without anything breaking on the stores that they had historically. That's really hard to do. Remember when Magento went from Magento 1 to Magento 2, it was a rewrite, and a component of that was trying to significantly improve their multi-storefront capabilities. They had the benefit of being on-premise software. They could just throw away Magento 1, rewrite it as Magento 2, and say, hey, customers, if you want this set of improved capabilities, you have to migrate. It's a total migration. You throw away your Magento 1, and now you start over on Magento 2. You can't do that with multi-tenant SaaS. Software as a service, multi-tenant means everybody's running on a single platform. And when you make changes, they have to not break the stores of everybody running. You can't tell them to version or upgrade or migrate. You have to fix it all while the train is running. And that is what we have done. So we're immensely proud of it. It truly makes us a full-featured, complete platform for even the world's largest enterprises. And it's a very big differentiator, for example, from Shopify, who cannot do this.
I want to back up just a little bit and just talk a little bit more about SaaS as well, and how much savings clients can realize in their SaaS offering versus the on-prem. You did mention that the having to upgrade and some of those breaking things.
Yeah.
The upgrade path in an on-prem version, you do have to shut down and start up and spend money on doing that. Where are the savings then met from BigCommerce for the client when they're on just this SaaS platform?
When you're on SaaS, a large portion of your software, hosting, and everything is included in one price. You don't have to pay separately for hosting. You don't have to have an army of software engineers to maintain your code. You don't have to worry about security and bug fixing. It's all included. That starts for as little as $30 a month, and believe it or not, on BigCommerce, if you go start a store for $30 a month, you're running on the exact same platform that Procter & Gamble is, and all of our largest and some of the biggest companies in the world, they're running on the exact same platform. We're maintaining, hosting, constantly improving performance, speed, each and every day. Our agency partners who are familiar with on-premise software, in particular Magento, often tell us that total cost of ownership of BigCommerce versus on-premise software can be anywhere from 50% lower to 80% lower, depending on the nature of the customer and the complexity of their site. So it's a dramatic saving. I've always believed that this was the best solution for most companies who are, if you're a retailer or a brand, you're usually not a technology company and don't have world-class software engineers and IT professionals. I believed in this for 22 years. In fact, in the 90s, I was a retail consultant, first starting with retail stores, physical stores, and then going to internet stores. And when I cut the cord on consulting and said, I'm going to now bet my career on a single concept. What is the concept I most believe in the world of e-commerce? At the end of 99, I joined a company called Escalate, which was one of the first SaaS e-commerce platforms. Back in the day, I remember there being 3 or so others I could name: Yahoo Stores, Volusion, Blue Martini. We were number 4. There might have been a few others around the world. They didn't even call it SaaS back then. They called it ASP. But at the time, this is like 2000, 99, 2000, companies were spending $5 to $10 million to cobble together the software and the infrastructure and the hosting for their stores. And Escalate came along and said, we'll do that for you, but only charge you 6% of your sales. But that scales, and you don't have all the upfront costs. Incredible idea before its time. That company didn't end up surviving and succeeding. Yahoo Stores and Volusion did, but they never really were able to modernize their tech stack as technology moved faster than they did. But today, I came back into BigCommerce and into this industry in 2015 with a total conviction that in the year 2015, it's fundamentally broken if on-premise software, no matter how good, and I knew how good Magento was because I partnered with them when I was at PayPal. My boss ended up buying them into eBay. I was part of that evaluation in 2010. So I saw Magento taking off. I had all the respect in the world for what a great platform it was, but it was on-premise software. It burdened companies with having to license their software, then customize it, maintain it, secure it, host it, and most companies can't do that well. They certainly don't like the versioning and the upgrading. And I said, it is high time that a SaaS platform was really the solution for the world's complex businesses. We'd already grown to number 2 in the world for serving small business. Shopify was number 1. They had a 5-year head start on us. And in 2015, I said, we're not going to catch them. We can't overcome their 5-year head start. They've already IPO'd. We have not yet. So we're going to do something they're not doing and nobody else is doing, something that's new to the world. We're going to create what we call open SaaS. We're going to take a SaaS platform and open up every component and turn it into little microservices, catalog and checkout, tax service, everything, with their own API layer and SDK, so that the world's complex businesses can customize, can modify, can extend. When they don't like our native functionality, use partner functionality. We're going to try to make SaaS as open and comparable to open source and on-premise as possible. And so that is our mission. It's been that for 7 years, bringing enterprise-level openness and enterprise-level functionality to a SaaS platform so that the world's businesses can really optimize for whatever complexity or uniqueness they have. That's our vision for what BigCommerce is doing differently than any other company. It's religion for me. I think it's what a big portion of the world's companies need when they embark on the best path of e-commerce.
I like the concept open SaaS. Maybe talk about some differentiators, especially around the checkout and the payment section. BigCommerce does offer a lot of savings as well in that area.
Yeah.
And maybe against some of the competitors, what are they doing in checkout? And what can't you do on some of the other platforms?
When I came into BigCommerce, Shopify was already offering Shopify Payments and more or less shoving it down the throats of their merchants. If you're a small business, you can either use Shopify Payments, their proprietary solution, or if you want to use someone else, you better hope they're integrated because that's up to Shopify. And if you do, they surcharge you an extra 2% of all your sales. Now, I come from a payments background too. I was doing internet payment gateways in the 90s. I was 8 years at PayPal. I helped create Express Checkout and build their whole merchant services business. I ran PayPal Europe for 4 years. I ran global product at PayPal. I know payments. And one of the things I know best is that there is no such thing as one size fits all in payments. The needs of a business in Mexico, I was there last week, are completely different when it comes to payments than the needs of one in the United States or Canada. And a solution built by Shopify, a white-labeled solution for United States and Canada, is not going to work in Mexico, let alone pick any other country around the world. It's not going to work in B2B. But even for plain Jane credit card processing, there's real differentiation between a Stripe, between a Braintree, between CyberSource and Authorize.net, Chase, Go to Europe, Adyen, Checkout.com. All of these companies do something different and special. It's not one size fits all. And so rather than in the pursuit of trying to take as much money from our customers as we can, which would happen if we had a proprietary payment solution, our strategy is the opposite. We go to each of these phenomenal payments players and we say, let's partner. Let's get you the single best integration into BigCommerce that you have with any platform in the world. So that if ever a business goes to you and says, hey, we like your payment solution, which platform can we best take advantage of it on? We want that to be BigCommerce. I believe that statement is true for PayPal and Braintree, for Stripe, for Chase, for Adyen. You go on down the list. We give customers choice, and we don't surcharge them if they don't use our own proprietary product because we don't have a proprietary product. We believe the specialists in payments are far better, and especially with their diversity of solutions, than we would be, and that Shopify is. By the way, if you want to know how you benefit from this, it's very straightforward. Just go to pricing on Shopify and compare that to pricing on BigCommerce, and you will see that you save a lot of money at the exact same size of merchant. At every tier, you're saving a substantial amount of money using our payments players because our payments players compete against each other, whereas Shopify says use us and we'll charge you more at every level. And if you don't like it, we'll surcharge you 2% to use somebody else. Now let's go to checkout. So if Shopify is making, let's call it 2.9% off a small business when they process the payments, if they don't use Shopify, they want to charge them the 2% surcharge. That means they have to control the checkout to know how much GMV, how much in sales a business is getting, so they can charge them that 2%. That is a core piece of the rationale around why at Shopify, third-party checkouts are disallowed. You have to use Shopify's checkout. They used to have third-party checkouts built by Bold, built by Bolt, different companies, D versus T, Fast, or merchant-specific ones. And they said, no, we don't allow those any longer because we need to know every single piece of data, every single sale, because we're going to charge you 2% if you're not processing the payments through us. Okay, that's how they make money, and they're really good at making money. We, on the other hand, believe in our concept of open, which is that we do our best to make the best built-in checkout that we can. But if you need to modify that checkout, You can do that. You can download the actual source code. I don't think this is possible in any other SaaS platform. You can download the source code that powers every single pixel in the BigCommerce checkout, modify it, re-upload it. Now you've got a custom checkout running on BigCommerce that you've modified, but this still maintains PCI compliance. That's pretty cool. You can also use a third-party checkout. We support Proudly, Bold, and Fast, and anybody else who creates a custom checkout. We support checkouts that are different in other countries around the world. You can have your own proprietary checkout. You can have a checkout modified for B2B and all the various B2B payment methods. We support that type of openness because businesses are complex. Businesses need to optimize for their geography and their customer and their use cases. And what we specialize in is, instead of a one-size-fits-all playbook, open SaaS, flexibility, the power to let a complex business optimize for its complexity and win that way.
So just going back to multi-storefront, if we put all these pieces together, you have a solution now that will work across borders, across currencies, across languages. Maybe help us understand how big, you've already helped us understand how big of a hurdle it was, but some of the solutions now that people can go to market with and the speed in which they could do it.
Yeah. So one example I love to use, I think it might have been the first or second multi-store customer to go live with us in beta. This was months ago. This was last year. It's a company called the Bullet Group that has Motorola rugged phones. So these are phones that they're dust-proof, waterproof, drop-proof, rugged phones. And another brand called Cat phones, like Caterpillar phones, that they sell all across Europe. They launched, I think they're up to, 20-plus stores for each of those two brands that are selling different currencies, different languages all around the world. And they did this in a headless way, meaning they've got, I think, a WordPress front end is the design, and then the back end is BigCommerce multi-store. And it's a multi-geo scenario. Ted Baker's doing the same thing. Ted Baker just launched this great apparel brand. They have something like a dozen different stores, different languages, different currencies. Again, it's the multi-geo use case. But you could also instead do a multi-segment use case, like maybe your initial store sells to consumers, but then you want a B store to sell to your wholesalers and your retailers. You can do that with multi-store. You could also come up with different brands, sub-brands, promotional launches, a store that you spin up and then spin down. And the power of this is that when you spin one of these stores up, you can use the same integrations that were on your main store. All the investment you put into building that initial big store, integrating into your ERP or accounting system, your email marketing, whatever your payment solution is, you don't have to replicate all that work. You can leverage it. That's really the power and the speed of multi-store, but I think it's illustrative that those first couple examples I give you, they have a dozen or more stores, and they did it out of the gate.
And I think the difference right now in the landscape of SaaS, at least, is your competitors are all having to have a storefront and a different back end. And then they have to figure out how to manage all those multiple back ends.
That is correct.
You're letting the client effectively manage one place to do everything, and then distribute out that SKUs and even multiple currencies with different checkouts in different countries.
My understanding is that with Shopify, you can clone a store. And it's pretty easy to clone a store. You push a button and you've got another store that's like your initial store, same theme, same integration, same currency. But you can't do multi-store, which is one account, and then start changing all of that, changing the theme and the currencies but have like same integration, same back end, one account, one store, lots of storefronts. You have multiple stores. And we've always been able to do that too. This is much more powerful. This is very appropriate for many of the world's mid-market and large enterprise businesses who do have multiple brands, segments, and or geographies. But so many small businesses want to do the same thing. And that's one of the neatest things that we'll be doing next. The announcement today is live launched for our enterprise stores, but we'll be bringing this to our small business stores, our $30 a month, our $80 a month, our $300 a month plans. You'll be able to click a button, add a store, and boom, there you go. Storefront, I should say.
So you did mention these new things coming up for the smaller merchants. What else is coming up with multi-storefront? What are the things we have to look forward to?
So in addition to bringing it to a small business and click of a button store edition, another major area of investment for us is in international capabilities within our native stencil framework. So having multi-language, we already have multi-currency, but especially multi-language and some other geographic capabilities built into individual stores. Multi-storefront will benefit from this if you're using our native design framework and theming engine called Stencil. If you don't want those limitations today, then you can go headless with us and do your front end in WordPress or Content Stack or Contentful or pick any other front end framework. We're a leader in headless, but we're bringing some of that native in as well. And then a final release, which should happen next month, it's March, should happen next month in April, is multi-location inventory. So this is also going to be helpful because for businesses who have multiple warehouses and or the addition of retail point of sale, we'll have the full inventory API capabilities for you to use logic within BigCommerce to track where is the inventory for each SKU, and then present that either to the customer, if the customer wants to make a choice, buy online, pick up in store, or within your shipping optimization to say customer is located here, closest warehouse is there, ship from that warehouse. So multi-location inventory APIs are coming out soon, and that's quite complementary to multi-storefront.
And the multi-location inventory is going to help in the omni-channel world. If somebody's trying to connect some of their outbound POS systems into BigCommerce, that'll allow that inventory to be available to the storefront?
Yes. And today you can manage that logic outside of BigCommerce, but bringing it in is nice and scalable. It's the sort of thing that would let us, for example, we're integrated and partnered with point-of-sale platforms like Teamwork Commerce and Square and Clover, another differentiator from Shopify, who has its own proprietary one-size-fits-all point-of-sale. We partner with the market leaders. And ePOS Now in Europe, iZettle, these partners can then integrate the knowledge of inventory counts that they have in individual stores into the API. And then the merchant who maybe has remote ship warehouses that are outside the point of sale can integrate those as well. And so that complexity can all be orchestrated within BigCommerce, relieving you from having to have an outside order management system or ERP that's handling all of that.
A lot of your enterprise clients are going to have an ERP. This enhances that, allowing actually to connect multiple ERPs to each store or you can grab inventory from each of those ERP systems with multiple inventory locations. Well, you'd have to have that. So
that's right.
I think that gives another advantage to that. We did mention a little bit about headless, and I'm always interested in headless. Where do you think headless is going in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you think the idea of having this a monolith where we have an easily added front end that's part of the system, or do you think a lot of stores are going this headless?
I think headless will only grow. For example, when people talk about the metaverse, if you start creating storefronts in the metaverse, that won't be based on prepackaged themes coming out of BigCommerce or Shopify. You'll be designing that outside of our framework and then integrating a BigCommerce in as a backend. More broadly, though, there is a very rich set of frameworks and content management systems and digital experience platforms that companies can use for their front ends. I gave the Ted Baker example. They're using Bloomreach, which is a really nice design and experience platform. I gave the example of the Bullet Group using WordPress. More than 25% of the world's e-commerce stores are WordPress stores, right? And WordPress is, by definition, going to be headless because WordPress is a content management system without its own e-commerce backend. You need to use BigCommerce or WooCommerce or another headless backend in order to commerce enable a WordPress site. But you think about the popularity of all these additional frameworks, Next.js and content management systems like Contentful and Content Stack, high-end Adobe Experience Manager, Drupal and Acquia, ones we don't work with like Sitecore. There are a lot of these. And what they do is they free up the designers to do things that are more innovative, less constricted than the templating engine coming out of an e-commerce platform. We've got great themes, and you can do a lot with your design and stencil. The vast majority of our stores are, in fact, designing within BigCommerce because those themes are great. But increasingly, brands want to be unconstrained, and they want to really innovate in their user experience. And this is the advantage you get with headless. The disadvantage is that you then now have to integrate your front end and your back end. BigCommerce is a platform that makes that easy. Our biggest competitor is Commerce Tools, a German company. That's like at the extreme end of difficulty because it's just this giant API switching network, and you need a point solution to everything that integrates. You need your payments integrated, your email marketing integrated, your catalog management integrated, your back-end ERP integrated. It is a nightmare. Whereas BigCommerce has all this functionality built in. You get to pick and choose which functionality and which of the 1,000+ apps that are already integrated you want to leverage. And so there's so much less work to do headless. And many of the front ends are so well integrated that we'll soon be putting them into our channel manager. You can just go in, click a button, and say, I want a new storefront. And for this storefront, you can choose differently with each one. For this storefront, I want to use WordPress, or this storefront, I want to use Contentful and Vercel for hosting. That will all be configurable straight out of the BigCommerce control panel.
Do you see BigCommerce now as being the leader in that sector and people chasing you?
It's not just that I see us as a leader. So does IDC when and this is 2 years ago, but they had their enterprise report on headless platforms, and they showed us as a leader. If I remember right, we might have been the only platform in the leader quadrant who is a true platform rather than a microservices platform. Like the other one, Commerce Tools is there, maybe Elastic Path. These are all purpose-built for headless commerce platform, and they're very expensive and hard to pull together, whereas BigCommerce was a full-featured platform that starting 6 years ago said, we want to serve the use case of companies who don't use our templating engine. The first 2 companies to go live with BigCommerce were giants. Harvard Business Publishing, which is still headless with us today, General Electric. Those were custom front ends. And over time, we've really built out our APIs, our connectors, our GraphQL capabilities. And so there's no doubt that we're fully invested in headless. And it's every bit our goal to continue to be the best platform in the world for most businesses to do headless commerce.
So just a little bit about performance. You mentioned GraphQL, and for the non-technical people, GraphQL is let's just call it one step above RESTful APIs, where it's much more performant. The coverage on GraphQL is very large on BigCommerce, and most things are available via GraphQL, which gives you a better performance on your store out of the box.
That's right. But there's still some gaps. There's still some components of our product that don't have GraphQL eyes. We don't have the full admin API infrastructure for just quickly provisioning a full store using GraphQL eyes. That's all being worked on. It's coming.
Yeah, and going back to the admin and separating admin out, a lot of times the complexity that brings, and you could still build it out with RESTful APIs.
That's right.
So I guess as we close out today, what are you most bullish about for BigCommerce in the next year?
In the next year, it's so hard to limit me to one thing. You're asking this question after the launch of multi-storefront. So I would have probably named that if you had asked me that question 2 days ago. But we're on the other side of that announcement. One of the things I'm most bullish about is international expansion. We were international from day one. The company was originally founded in Sydney, Australia, and only relocated its headquarters to the U.S. 2 years in when most of the customers were there. So they moved the customers. Now we're headquartered in Austin, Texas. But we've shown that we're really good at hiring great talent, and because of our open and partner-centric approach, going into new geographies and immediately being able to successfully serve the local customer and partner ecosystem. We did that spectacularly well starting in the UK in 2018, I think it was. That business is absolutely booming. Since we expanded into Italy, France, and the Netherlands last year, and the beginning of this year, Germany, Spain, and Mexico, each of those is off to a nice start. So one of my aspirations is to get to a point where we're competing and serving businesses in every country, just about, in the world, of all sizes. I have a real passion for that. I was an international relations major in college and ran PayPal Europe for 4 years. So this is an area where I really get jazzed. We're also a giant believer, if I'm going to limit myself to two things. The other thing I'm most excited about is omni-channel selling. We bought a company last year called Feedonomics, which is the leading feed management solution in the world. Feed management is how an e-commerce company gets its catalog of products for sale from out of its e-com platform or PIM or ERP and into the leading advertising channels, social networks, and marketplaces that it wants to generate demand from and sales. And Feedonomics is good, so good because they serve something like 28% of the top 1,000 U.S. online retailers. They not only connect you into Google Shopping and Facebook, Instagram, and Wish, and Walmart, and eBay, and Amazon, and Mercado Libre, and all these other great channels, but they transform and optimize the data in each one so that your catalog looks exactly the way it needs to look to perform best on Google, and then separately for Facebook, and separately for eBay and Amazon. And each of these has different schema for text length, description length, picture pixelation, and Feedonomics enables you to optimize for every one. And what it does is it makes it really easy for a business to advertise and generate demand and sell in so many more places where your possible consumers might be spending their time, and that drives growth. So between multi-store, which is creating more of your own storefronts to sell to customers, and omni-channel, which is getting your catalog distributed to all the other places where consumers may browse the internet or shop. Omni-channel plus multi-storefront, I think, really is a 1-2 punch to help businesses succeed better on BigCommerce than they would elsewhere.
Yeah, and just as we close out here, I just wanted to make a comment on the challenges of going into new markets and how the open SaaS concept really helps to hurdle or get over those hurdles. It's possible for somebody in Bolivia or Uruguay to build a BigCommerce store and then to have a custom checkout made with a custom payment system that's a Bolivian bank and whomever is going to ship in Bolivia.
Yeah.
This is possible with BigCommerce, where the majority of SaaS platforms, it is impossible.
That is correct, although we also want to complement that with having pre-integration into one or more of the leading payment solutions in Bolivia, so the merchant doesn't have to go through that trouble if they don't want to.
Yeah, I was just making an illustration on.
That's right. We have that openness and flexibility. It's part of open SaaS.
That's great. Brent, as we close out the podcast, I give everybody an opportunity to do a shameless plug about anything you'd like to promote today. You've spent a lot of time promoting multi-storefront. Is there anything else that you'd like to promote that's even non-BigCommerce?
The only other thing I think I would promote that's related to BigCommerce that I haven't touched on yet is our B2B capabilities. B2B e-commerce is roughly as big as B2C, and we're full featured. We serve B2B really well. We have a B2B edition with a whole bunch of core B2B functionality that comes out of the box. And so if you're a B2B seller, entirely or partially, we're a great platform for that too.
Yeah, and full transparency, we are a BigCommerce partner, and we're using the B2B edition, and it's fantastic. It works very well. Brent, thank you so much for being here today. It's been such an enjoyable conversation, and I wish all the best for multi-storefront. It is a game changer in the SaaS business, and I say that from a background of another platform that is multi-storefront, and I'm so excited to have this new feature inside of BigCommerce.
Thanks for having me, Brent, and congrats to your parents who named you very well.
Yes, thank you. Have a good day.